Okay, so Tara, would you talk to us about like what to do when it feels like everything has stopped and you're just like thinking, should I freak out or what is going on? Because it's really uncomfortable. What are your thoughts on that?
This is a beautiful, powerful question because this is something that I think a lot of us are navigating right now. This is something that I've been navigating in my own life and personal space. And so I think what I want to begin highlighting is this notion that nothing actually ever stops, that change is constant, that there is always movement in some form or fashion, no matter how subtle that it may be. Especially when we're in linear time, we're in a place where there is time, that change is going to be constant. And so it really becomes about dropping into that silence, dropping into that space, soothing the nervous system so that way you can open up to the reception of that flow of information that's always occurring. And so this is something that I've been really embracing and bringing into my sessions with my clients. It's really the direction that my practice has been very organically moving and evolving into.
Oh, I love it when things organically evolve. It's the best, right?
Yes.
Because it's not like you decided, oh, I'm going to do this and you create it, but it comes through you and then you just follow it and it becomes natural. But I would love to hear more about kind of like what would be the reasons that a person would think that it's a problem because things in my life have stopped, like maybe things that I'm used to happening, things are getting really still, or maybe it has to do with like, the way money's coming in, or could you talk more about that?
Well, I think it's really just that echo of the old paradigm that we've been sort of dragging forward with us, but that is gradually and organically beginning to break up. It's really that notion that we feel so much more comfortable doing, putting in the time, the energy, the effort, really that power through, push through mentality. So it's now what's really cool, you talked about kind of the organic element of all of this. This is what's so fascinating about the times that we're in right now, is because there's been this natural evolutionary progression for humanity to move into this new paradigm, this shift into navigating life with greater ease and grace. And so that's what's so cool about this, is it's giving us the opportunity to be able to connect more with the subtle. That's part of where kind of the new human or humanity is evolving into, is this notion that we are a blend of both subtle or non-physical and physical. And so it's very natural to begin bridging the two of these together. And it's really also pertinent in these times so that we can have that greater holistic, uh, really picture of what is occurring. And that includes having an awareness of what's happening in the background.
Yes. Yeah, because I mean, I don't know about you, but as far as just doing, I know that myself, I have a compulsion to do more. Like, am I doing enough? I'm asking myself, I hear the voice. Am I doing enough? Have I done enough yet? Have I worked hard enough? Have I earned it? That kind of paradigm, it's still in us as much as like I'm aware that it's there and I know that it's something that I want to change. And I used to not even know it was there. And now when I hear that voice, I have to talk, I have to dialogue with it, obviously. Like as far as if it's the inner child, I consider all the voices pretty much some version of the inner child. But how do you navigate that?
So it's really what ended up happening. So it's kind of, one of those things that I sort of stumbled onto. Again, sort of part of my own natural organic progression that really started with that notion of emotional empowerment. So doing that type of work. So what was my emotional awakening began to expand into my spiritual awakening, which has since then evolved into this beautiful journey through consciousness. And so for me, it's been reestablishing that connection to my source self, my higher self, my oversoul, whatever your language is for that, which is just another way to say the subtle self, that higher vibrational self, that vast energetic self. And so once we give ourselves the permission to create some of that distance, to create some of that space, we very naturally create a sense of safety that then allows us to soothe the nervous system and really then be able to move into sort of that sacred witness of what it is that we're experiencing externally, internally, and even beyond that. And it really does take cultivating that awareness of distance, of space. So that way you aren't so in it. So you're giving yourself that permission to then shift into a state of greater curiosity, really overall just greater receptivity. So that way, what was maybe escaping kind of your attention, that you can allow that to then be able to come into your awareness. So for me, it's really been about using tapping, which on the surface, I say, I refer to it as that we are basically doing sustainable soul growth through symbolism and metaphor tapping. But it's so much more profound than that, because what we're really doing is we're deepening and externalizing our awareness of the subtle. And that's gives us that opportunity to essentially filter non-physical information through the physical body, which is embodiment. And that really helps us to be able to discover and integrate our internal guidance system. So it's about connecting with that inner discernment, which again is so important in this day and age. And that's why it is that sort of natural organic evolution of where humanity is heading, because it's not enough to just take the what's happening out there kind of at face value.
Yeah, so you mentioned tapping, and I was going to ask you that, like how, when a client comes to you and their nervous system is really activated, and they maybe they feel dysregulated, they feel anxious, they feel afraid. How do you help them get into a space where they can, like you say, be a witness? They can observe this instead of reacting to it.
Hmm. Yeah. So anyone who knows me already, you know that the gentle techniques from clinical EFT are so near and dear to my heart. And even that too, my understanding of why those are so profound for me I've even been kind of moving into a deeper understanding of that. But it really comes back to, it gives us that ability to practice present, to practice that present moment awareness while feeling safe. It also gives us the opportunity to really acknowledge our multidimensionality. And so if a client comes and they're feeling very activated, then really what I do is I sit with them in that space, reinforcing their sense of safety, their sense of agency, helping them come back to that center. And so then that way they can observe the discomfort. They can observe the perceived issue or problem from a different place where it doesn't feel like it is life or death. Because essentially that is what the activated nervous system is. That is that survival mechanism that kicks in. And so we get tunnel visioned, we get very narrowed in, constricted, tense. We begin shutting down out of that really innate wisdom to self-preserve. But then what we're doing in that moment is we're reinforcing to the client that it's safe for them to have an awareness of the discomfort and to be able to feel safe opening up to observe it. And the only way we're going to be able to do that, to kind of zoom them out and be able to experience that broader perspective, is to really let the brain, body, and nervous system know that in that moment they're okay. And so it really becomes about creating that container of safety. And the gentle techniques do that very beautifully, to be able to just really cultivate that sense of safety or bring it into greater awareness. But even just allowing the client to experience their self-agency and capability to pivot between different awarenesses, from this is my awareness of what's happening out here in my external environment. This is my awareness of what's happening internally. Giving them the opportunity to just kind of pivot, to acknowledge that they can go deeper into something, or they can go out of something, move out of something. So it's kind of again just highlighting their ability to constrict or expand at will or through self-agency, especially when they're in a container where it feels safe enough, or they're guided to be able to do that, to have that awareness.
Yeah, totally. It's all about safety, isn't it? And just for people who are watching this, maybe they don't know what gentle techniques are. I thought maybe we would just quickly acknowledge what gentle techniques are in EFT.
Yeah. So the gentle techniques. Let's see if I can find a succinct way to kind of explain this. Um, for me, it comes down to sort of, again, the components that we've already talked about that I've just discovered to be so crucial in that ability to be able to shift out of problem mindset into that more receptive state. So rather than when you're reaching, you're able to kind of just receive because you feel like you're able to relax. Again, when you don't have that activation that's occurring and you have that expanded awareness that I'm okay. I can have an awareness that this is uncomfortable, but I'm okay. And it's okay for me to have an awareness for that. It's okay for me even to give myself more space to keep this at arm's length or even further. Or it's a way for me to be curious about some of the elements of this that are less triggering, less likely to send me right back into that activated state. And this is really kind of what opened me up to beginning to integrate our awareness of the subtle. Because with the gentle techniques, we'll often have our clients connect with, if it's getting into the body where they're having an emotion, we ask them to feel into that a little bit deeper. And so we might ask if there's a color, if there's a shape, if there's a texture. And so again, that's just very naturally creating some of that distance and that space to allow the client to move into an observer role where they can become a little bit more curious about, why does that remind me of a spiky green ball in my chest, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
And it also, it really honors the client being able to expand at their comfort level and to be able to experience how life responds to that. So that's my other, the reason why I love the gentle techniques and why they're so effective is because they allow the resistance to be there in whatever shape or form that it's showing up, and they acknowledge it as innate wisdom. And really, the body or the nervous system setting your pace of grace, and that's the opening, and it's enough. And it really has reinforced to me what I've always known in my heart, was that trauma can be shifted with ease and grace, and even curiosity and playfulness and creativity. And so which again is the direction that we're moving, because that old paradigm was that, needing to push through or power through or overcome, really just trying to kind of overcompensate for the energies that are happening in kind of the background or the subconscious. And this just allows it to be there and allows it to be part of the process, so that we can expand with it and expand as it.
Yeah, when you say that, it just makes me think about like the gentle techniques. I so am on board with you. Like they're the most wonderful techniques, I think. EFT, I mean, I love EFT and I love all the techniques available in EFT. But I discovered personally that the gentle techniques did allow me to get that distance from things and get and in parts work, we call it the subject object shift, where you get that part of you outside of yourself so you can actually see it and talk with it and work with it. That when there's that distance, it does allow you to detect, like you're talking about, this subtlety, right? Because when we're overtaken in our nervous system by the trigger, we're activated, call that activation, and we become highly focused, because we go into survival and it's black and white, it's life and death. We can't find any subtleties because it's this or that. It's a paradigm of like this or that, right?
Yeah.
And in quantum physics, they talk about this idea that there's twofold logic, because that's like the kind of Cartesian, Newtonian idea that the world is mechanistic and it's out there and it's out there and it's observable and it's separate from us. So twofold logic is it's either this or that, right? But then there's fourfold logic, which I can't say I fully grasp this. I'm not a scientist, but fourfold logic is like, it's not just that there's this and that, but there could be also both these things and then neither of these things at the same time, which I think is subtlety to me, you know?
Yeah. Well, and even, if you just stop to think about it, that shifting the attention or the awareness to the subtle, focusing on the subtle automatically, sends those signals to the nervous system and the brain that I'm okay here, because otherwise, like you said, when you're in that survival, that life or death, like you have to be focused on what is kind of outwardly happening, what is sort of in your face. You don't have the luxury of zooming out and being with the subtle and just feeling into it. And so even that in itself, we can use that to shift the nervous system, um, by redirecting the attention to the subtle.
Yeah, yeah. And coming back to just this idea that being able to sit with stillness or things slowing down or things even stopping in life and not falling into this pattern of, oh, I've got to create things to, because we're a lot of times trying to distract ourselves from actually tuning into the subtle because it wasn't safe before. But what I'm hearing you say is like these techniques, the gentle techniques in EFT can create this space that where it finally feels safe to sit in this stillness, in this slowing down. And then from that, we can find we can find answers. Like, what do we find in this stillness?
That is that is the question. Um, I think this is when you drop into the infinite space, there's an infinite number of answers to what you might find in that space. And just from my own personal experience, it's incredible discovering what you have access to in that space, the information that you have access to. And so you talked about kind of navigating those places where things kind of feel like they're coming to a stop or a standpoint, and it can be very uncomfortable. And so I've been experiencing this recently, just with regards to my own personal life or my business, where it was so obvious that something was going on here for me because of the contrast of the way the movement that was there, that then shifted very drastically into what I was perceiving as sort of non-movement. And so it really kind of, I didn't have really any other choice but to just kind of be with it. And it gave me an opportunity to really just practice at such a greater level, what it is that I experience in my own sessions with clients and my own personal work sessions. And so, I had a lot of well-meaning friends and family, who are also kind of aware of outwardly what's been occurring. And they would offer really great, practical, rational advice. And I would take that in too. And so I would pass that through my body barometer, and I would check in with, should I be doing that? Is this something I need to be doing? And when I really just, again, allowed myself to kind of sit with it all and just be with it all, and from a place where caretaking of the nervous system, so that way I could sit with it. Because that's the time when the mind is going to get silent. It will happen very naturally and organically as you reduce kind of that fear factor. So as you restore that present moment awareness that, okay, right here and right now, I'm okay in this moment. And that was just where, if I really felt into it, I was like, outwardly, this looks like a problem. And a lot of people are outwardly perceiving this as a problem.
Uh-huh.
But when I really felt into the energy, it didn't feel like a problem to me. And I started sensing information about it that was coming through, with intuitive information, an awareness that things are reorganizing, that there's a reset that's been occurring, that this space was created, with kind of a grander unfolding in mind. And I may not still yet have a full awareness of what that bigger unfolding is, but it's now I feel connected to the security of having a, a more kind of holistic sense of what might be occurring. And now it feels more like a choice that, yes, I can move into that place of sort of the mental chatter of that fearful kind of activation based on, what I've known, past history, or even kind of collective perspective. But it feels hollow. It doesn't feel real. It really does feel like the chatter. And having that contrast of connecting with the subtle information, the subtle impressions that I received, and the subtle insights that have continued kind of flowing in. It's amazing what can flow in when you don't fill the space. Uh, that feels real. That feels more real to me. And so what has just kind of come of this, cultivating this kind of inner discernment, is this very beautiful organic self-trust, and also trust in life, and also a greater sense of self, which has then led to this organic creation of boundaries, an organic centeredness. It's just been really, really amazing. And at the same time, when you practice tuning into kind of the subtle, sensory information that's happening kind of behind the scenes, that's always there, that's always accessible to us. It's just bringing that into your awareness now, and really being more conscious about connecting to it. And I actually did lose my train of thought on that with where I was going with that.
So
To the
I'll just say
space.
that, like, I think what you're saying is really what I'm hearing is that, like, what it really is about is what we really want to feel is that we feel the trust and the connection to something that feels real. And so it's not even really about like what I'm trying to get or, what other people are saying I should be doing, like how my life should look. For sure, they're all well-meaning. Family and friends are probably mostly well-meaning, want you to do well and want to see you succeed. And so, however it looks to them, because it looks like a problem to them, that they might be giving you some advice or even maybe sometimes judging or criticizing you too, depending on, who's in your life. But that what we really want is to be able to trust ourselves when how it looks to other people isn't how we're perceiving it, and that it's if it's not a problem and we're tuning in internally and we're like, no, this is not a problem. This is part of the unfolding. We have to trust ourselves and we have to go with that. And then when we do that enough and like things do work out, and then we can say, wow, there was a reason that was happening, and I'm glad I trusted myself, and I'm glad that I stayed with the unfoldment. That we can look back and we can build on a pattern of success, and we can trust ourselves more and more, and that can deepen.
Yeah, absolutely. It really does become an evidence building process when this is something that you're just doing, that's not really what you're trying to do. But again, that's just one of the beautiful organic byproducts that happens along the way as you do practice this self-attunement, practice this self-calibration. And that's what you realize, that really every moment in life, any interaction becomes that opportunity for greater self-understanding, greater self-awareness. It becomes that opportunity of calibrating to, is this my path? Is this what it means for me? And so it's really just reinforcing that notion that you are the authority on you, and others in the relationships and the experiences can provide that really valuable sort of juxtaposition or contrast to help us kind of feel our way to discover where our own edges are. um, but it's so needed right now, and that also kind of speaks to the shift that's been occurring of you know, previously giving our power away to those external authority figures, and without sort of stopping to discern for ourselves. That's happened in so many of the different industries, and because we've kind of gotten so disconnected from our own internal guidance, that's why we do have so much kind of chronic illness, chronic disease that's happening. And it's, there's really so much more that's going on underneath that. And when you talked about sort of what can come into that space, well, there is no one else like you on the planet at this time. And so what can come into that space is going to be personally specific to you. And it's also this beautiful opportunity to really experience yourself as, as they say, sort of the ocean in the drop, because you get to experience your greater connection. You get to experience your interconnectivity to all of this. When you do realize that you have so much connection to this information that's just all around us, to the field, but then you also get to experience it in a way that really honors your personal expression. And so it's
Personal personal expression is very important. Isn't that what we all want? Is to be able to just express ourselves without feeling afraid or without censoring or filtering, and just be who we are.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that's just kind of so much of the old conditioning, right, is trying to kind of basically put people in boxes, put people in categories, and that one size fits all, but then kind of discovering now that it's not one size fits all, that there are threads in which we are connected, but there are also ways in which we're supporting the greater whole by being our own individualized expression.
Wow, yeah. So, we could talk a long time about this for sure. In fact, I'm thinking we'll have to have another conversation, absolutely. But for
Definitely.
now, I was wondering, how can people get in touch with you? Is if maybe they wanted to work with you or explore this topic more?
Yeah. So they can go to my website. It's tarah.bigger@gmail.com, and Tarah is spelled with an H. You'll find me there with the services that I'm offering. I've got a new package actually that is really everything that we've talked about. That is the focus, is bridging your non-physical self, your subtle self, your vast, higher vibrational, higher self with your physical experience so that you can move through life with that internal discernment. So I'll be releasing that package pretty soon.
Awesome. Yeah, so we'll put the link in the description of this video so they can just click it and go right to your website.
Thank you so much.
It was such a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. Always a lot of fun. And I know we will be reconnecting to have some deeper dives.
Definitely, definitely. We're going to have you back. All right. Thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you next time. Bye.